Chromosomes. Little strands of nucleic acids and proteins are the fundamental genetic instructions that tell us who we are at birth. Most people are born with 46 chromosomes, but each year in the United States, about 6,000 people are born with an extra chromosome, making them a person with Down syndrome. If you've ever encountered someone with Down syndrome, you know that they are some of the kindest, most joyful people you will ever meet. They truly have something extra. My name is Lisa Nichols, and I have spent the last 24 years as both the CEO of Technology Partners and as the mother to Allie. Allie has something extra in every sense of the word. I have been blessed to be by her side as she impacts everyone she meets. Through these two important roles as CEO and mother to Allie, I have witnessed countless life lessons that have fundamentally changed the way I look at the world. While you may not have an extra chromosome, every leader has something extra that defines who you are. Join me as I explore the something extra in leaders from all walks of life and discover how that difference in each of them has made a difference in their companies, their families, their communities, and in themselves. If you like this episode today, please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star rating. I'm excited to have Angie Schelker on the show today. Angie is a seasoned information technology executive. Well, Angie Schelker, I am so delighted that you are making the time today to be on the Something Extra podcast. I know how busy you are, so thank you for making the time.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so, you and I have known each other for a very long time because you were at MasterCard, and we knew each other when you were at MasterCard and then kind of lost track of one another. And then a couple years ago, reconnected. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just grateful to have you in my orbit. So, Angie, you have had an incredible career in tech, software engineer. You spent 3 years, I think, at EY. I'm sure you have some thoughts about that. And I always say that is an awesome place to start. I think.
Yes. Going through a consulting role early in my career, it gave me I got exposure to so many things that I wouldn't have otherwise. I got to experience different organizations, different cultures, different types of roles in technology. And so, I started as a software engineer, but then I was able to move into some additional roles as an analyst and project manager. And so got to really see different facets of IT and how it's done at different organizations. And so it was a really great way to start my career and just kind of dabble in different things and get exposure to different things.
It's almost like a master's in the real world is what I would kind of call it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you went from there, I think, to Enterprise, another one of our awesome clients that we love. But then you went to MasterCard, and I was counting up. You were there for 18 years, I think, Angie, and you had at least 7 different roles, which is just really phenomenal. I know MasterCard does a really good job of that, moving people around. And so I would love to dig into that more. But before we do, I want you to tell me a little bit about how you grew up. I've never asked you this question, but did you grow up here in St. Louis or did you grow up somewhere else?
Oh, no, actually, I grew up in Missouri, but I grew up in central Missouri, a small town near Jefferson City. And, grew up on a cattle farm. And so kind of, got kind of those values of hard work and perseverance kind of built into me from the beginning. And then I decided I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get out of the small town and go to a bigger city. And I ended up in St. Louis for college, and I never left. I actually thought I would leave Missouri at some point, but I never did. After I got out of college, I went to WashU, and then I got a job here locally, and then my husband grew up here, and so we've just stayed here. Yeah.
So, Angie, you grew up on a farm. I love that. I've known so many people that have grown up on farms. They are some of the hardest working people I know. I mean, truly, you grew up on a cattle farm. Did you have jobs? Did you have chores when you were on the farm?
So I did. I not as many as my brother. My brother spent a lot more time doing farm work than I did. But yeah, I had certain things I did. Like one of my favorite stories is because it was a cattle farm, so we butchered our meat and they cut up the meat and all of that stuff. And so my job was always writing the name on the package of what kind of meat it was. And as I grew up, I got kind of, I wanted to do other things, but that was my role. Right. And so I would get bored sometimes and I'd write like mystery meat on, like, this was when it was for us. And so then my mom would, like 6 months later be pulling meat out of the freezer and she'd say, "Oh, we're having mystery meat for dinner tonight."
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That is so funny. But I do agree. Growing up that way, you learn how to work
Yeah.
hard. A great work ethic. I love it. I love it. And thank God for farmers, right? Because they feed the world.
Yeah.
I love that. So I was going to ask you, I didn't know like if you were inspired when you were younger for tech. I mean, was there a person in your life? Was there a teacher? Was there a coach? Was there anyone in your life that you kind of looked at and said, "Hey, that person's I want to do that one day," or did that come later?
I would say that came later. As I was growing up, I mean, I was always good with math and science, and so in just trying to figure out what I want to do, I was directed to kind of consider engineering, and you might want to, if you're good in math and science, engineering would be a great career. So that's what I decided to major in. And so I have an engineering degree, but I had a computer science minor. And so when I got out of school, I ended up going into technology as a software engineer. And so I knew I wanted to be in STEM, but I didn't really have any specific role models in that area.
That's interesting that you did. I'm glad you did. Aren't you glad you did?
Yes,
I mean, what a wonderful career, and especially for women. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But I do know that you went to WashU. Do you even remember, Angie, how many women were in your class?
So I think when I was there, it was probably about 20 to 25%, which was actually higher than most at the time. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to go to a school like WashU, because it did have a higher percentage at the time. But there definitely were classes where there were just a couple of us in a large class that was the rest all guys. And even my first job out of school, I was the only female engineer. Now, when I went to Ernst & Young, it was different. But I did kind of have to deal with that as I started off my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I'm sure you've learned a few things along the way. Well, I really want to talk about MasterCard, and I want to talk about, there's 3 different roles I really want to talk about. And some of our listeners are technologists, Angie, but a lot of them are not, but they may be aspiring, or they may be young people that are looking for what career I'm going to go into. So I'm going to name a couple of the roles that you were in, and I would love just to dig into those a little bit. But you were in one of your roles, you were the Vice President of Business and Analytics Intelligence Systems. So tell our listeners a little bit about this role. What were your main responsibilities when you were in that role? Can you kind of break it down for us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, technology is such a wide area of focus, right? And technology is integral to, every business these days. And so this, in that particular role, I led a group that was responsible really for, bringing value to, the data, that MasterCard's data. And so we compiled data from, all of the transactional systems and combined that with some external data and delivered custom solutions for our customers. And so those were different types of analytics so they could understand their data and how maybe they might compare to other benchmark organizations that were similar, understand their customer profiles, where they're, it's an interesting business because people think of MasterCard as just like the transaction and the swipe, but there's so much behind it, and understanding how, MasterCard's customers can drive business to their companies based on spending profiles of MasterCard's customers in general. So, and so in that role, we had external solutions, but we also had internal solutions that were used by the MasterCard employees to do additional analytics and understand the data and enable them to work better with our customers as well. So it was very interesting. I got to see many different parts of the business throughout that because we pulled in data from everywhere.
Right. People may not realize that. I believe MasterCard's one of the largest data repositories on the planet, but just know that it's all anonymized and still private. And that was very important to you guys. And I know that you had governance around that, Angie. So don't anyone get too scared about that because they definitely took care to protect that data. But you were also Vice President of Strategic Program Management. Tell us a little bit about that role.
Yeah, so obviously MasterCard is a global company, and the network runs globally, and so in that role, I was focused on the strategic projects related to our network and infrastructure. And so basically, anytime we needed to stand something up anywhere around the globe, we, needed to pull in the right people, the right teams, and there were also often prioritization conflicts between groups. And so in my role, I worked with the teams to understand, what the business needs were, when it was needed, and also identify a prioritization mechanism for, because you have limited resources. And so where do you focus first to deliver the highest business need, the area that had the greatest business need? Yeah.
Very important prioritization, because you obviously cannot do everything. So I think that's for a leader, I do believe that is one of the most difficult things to do, because everyone wants their project completed. But, I'm sure that you guys had very formal processes around ROI, return on that investment that you looked at. You also were Vice President of Operation Analytics and Monitoring. But let me ask you this, Angie, because this is always interesting to me. Were all of these roles that you did at MasterCard, were you tapped on the shoulder for these roles? Or did you put your name in the hat? Did you raise your hand and say, I'll do that role? Or was it a combination of both? I just think that's a really important lesson for people that are on their own leadership journey to learn.
Yes. And that's a really good point. So it was a combination of all of those. Sometimes I raised my hand. Sometimes, I was asked to move to a different role. And sometimes I accidentally volunteered for a different role and I didn't realize it. It's a funny story, but and one of the great things about a large organization like MasterCard and like many others is that you have the opportunity to move around in the company and try different things. And I think for a tech career, this is very important. Some people get very focused on a specific technology, and that's great. But you can still be focused on a specific technology and do different things and add value in different ways. And what I found as I moved around, I learned about different areas of the business, and that made me a better leader and a better, technologist per se, because I understood aspects that I wouldn't have understood had I not moved around. And I met more people in the organization, and I got exposure to different technologies too. And even within a technical role, like there's software development, and there's the network, and there's the infrastructure side, and there's, like, even with the data warehouse, there was the back end data loading and the front end analytics and visualization, and all of those pieces work together. And by having roles in all those different areas, I really got a bigger picture view of what it takes to deliver technology. And so I feel like every time I moved, even some of my moves were maybe not, they were a lot, sometimes lateral. In one case, when I went from Enterprise to MasterCard, I kind of, some people would think I took a step back, but it was really to like broaden my perspectives and learn about different areas of the business or the technology, and I grew in ways I didn't imagine at the time. And this is one of the things that I often tell people who work for me. I'm like, a lateral move can give you a new perspective and show that you can jump in and pick up something new and lead it and make it successful. And as you grow in your career, that is incredibly important. And I'll just say one more thing. So like with technology, it's always changing. And you, like, even for, software engineers, they learn one language, but then that evolves over time and they learn new ones, and being able to jump in and pick up that new thing and problem solve and figure it out. I mean, that's what it's all about. So I'm a big proponent of taking rotations or taking lateral moves to try new things.
I could not agree with you more. There's so much packed into what you just said, because I was just thinking as you were talking, Angie, moving to a different area, you meet different people. Mm-hmm. And how important is it? Because technologists sometimes don't build what I would consider a network as much, but I bet you're meeting different people. So maybe you knew somebody on the infrastructure side because you were in that role, and now you're over here in this other role, but they're all interwoven and interlaced. So you have those people that you knew when you were in that role that help you do your job better in this role. Yeah. And it's really, I love what you just said. There's so much good packed in there, really.
Yes. I mean, relationships are so important in any role. And, what you just said about knowing someone in another group. I mean, maybe they're not the person you need to talk to, but they can help you and they can give you some background and some perspective. And it's just, that's how work gets done, is through the relationships that you build and working with other people.
Right. So let me ask you this. The other thing that I just think about, because some people may not do that because there's so much trepidation and thinking, well, I don't know anything about that area. What if I'm not successful in that role? I can't take that risk. And so when I think about what you just said, it does take a lot of courage. In your own opinion, how have you built that courage muscle for yourself? And is there anything that you would say to somebody if they're, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't be successful, so I don't really want to move over there?
That is a really good point. So one thing that I found with myself throughout my career is, early on, I was afraid to admit if I didn't know something. I felt like I had to have all the answers, and especially as I became a leader, like I should be the one who knows and can answer the questions. But as a leader, you shouldn't always know everything. You need to tap into the people around you. And so taking that step into a role, so a lot of people become a leader of the team that they've been on. So they're leading a function that they know in and out. That next challenge of a leader is to take something new and figure it out, build a new team, learn, and so taking that step to lead something that you don't know, it challenges you as a leader in a different way. You can, but it also gives you the freedom to ask questions and understand, and people don't expect you to have all the answers because you haven't been on the team the whole time. So and when I move into a new role, I take the time to, learn about the team, learn about the people, learn what their challenges are, understand what they're doing, understand, what's ahead of them, and then kind of work with the team to formulate where we need to go next.
Mm-hmm. There's good things packed in there too, because when you do that, Angie, I think number one, it makes you appear human, that you're not superhuman. It's not like you're Spock and you know everything. So, there's a little bit of vulnerability there. And then the other thing that occurs to me is people probably really appreciate it when you approach it that way, because then they feel like they're helping you, or that they actually have a voice and that you care about their voice. So there's really good leadership lessons packed in there. Well, we do need to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with Angie Schelker on the Something Extra podcast, because we got a lot more to talk about.
In business, the tendency is to seek out partners who are bigger, faster, stronger. When it comes to IT, you should be looking for smarter, faster, better. That's just what you'll find with the talented technologists at Technology Partners. Our experts develop custom solutions to tackle your most complex challenges, all to simplify your processes in the smartest, most efficient way possible. The time to be swift and nimble starts now. Go to technologypartners.net/solutions and see what's possible.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with my friend Angie Schelker. So, Angie, you are now an information technology executive at another organization. What are some of the initiatives that you're working on right now?
So, I think the biggest thing on our plate right now is migrating all of our applications to the cloud. I think everyone is in a similar place right now, but that is our biggest challenge over the next couple of years. But along with that, right, the business doesn't stop. And so we have to make that huge shift of moving to the cloud while we continue to meet the business needs. So that is a continuous, talk about prioritization, a continuous juggling act that we have to do. But I'm really excited about the opportunities that will be there once we do have everything moved. We'll be able to just deliver more quickly, add business value that we can't today because it just takes too long and it's too expensive.
Mm-hmm. That I could not agree more. It's not something, technology is not a one and done. It's something you have to continuously keep your eye on, because you said before, it changes so rapidly and changes so quickly. Angie, this is crazy. But I just had a gentleman on the podcast probably a month or so ago. He's an emotional intelligence guru out of Canada. And he said something to me. There is a study out there right now, and I don't know if this is going to blow your mind, but it blew my mind. There's a study out there right now that says in this century alone, we're going to have 20,000 years worth of change.
Wow.
And that is mainly due to the rapid pace of technology change. Mm-hmm. It blew my mind to think about that. So that is one thing we can count on, is that it's going to change. But speaking of that, are there some emerging technologies or trends that you're seeing that you're kind of excited about or curious about?
So, we've spoken about data already from my prior roles, and that continues to be an area of interest and focus to me, like how we can leverage our data to be smarter about what we're doing, be more effective, deliver more quickly and in the right ways. And the data that's out there is sometimes not exactly what people think, right? There's the business data and there's operational data, which you can use, to improve how you're functioning, just how the systems themselves are functioning and things like that. So it's very technical in nature, as compared then to also business data where you're driving additional business value, and bringing all of that together, and being able to leverage the capabilities that are available in the cloud where you can scale when you need to, and do this advanced analytics. That comment about the 20,000 years or whatever.
Years of change in 1 century.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the product of having these new capabilities that exist that didn't exist even 10 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Very exciting. It's going to be a great field. We just had a young man over to our house on Friday evening for an event, and he is in school right now. And I'm like, what are you studying? And he wants to be a data scientist. I'm like, yes. When you graduate, you need to call me, because that's definitely an area of growth that we see in tech. So I want to move into something that I know is near and dear to both of our hearts. And this is really about women in tech. And what our listeners may not know, Angie, is that the very first computer programmer was a woman. It was Ada Lovelace in 1843.
Really?
And yes, Ada Lovelace in 1843 was the very first computer programmer. And so today we're still a far cry from having equal representation. We've definitely made some inroads. I think U.S. Census Bureau in 1970, there were women made up about 38% of the workforce, and 8% of those were in tech. Today, women make up about half of the workforce, and there's about 27% of women that are actually in tech. So I know that this is something that we've made progress on, but you don't move the needle on this without intentionality. And I happen to know, and you were at MasterCard for 18 years. MasterCard's very, very intentional about this, and with mentorship and that sort of thing. There's a lot of ERGs out there around women in STEM. I mean, how do you personally think about women in technology? What are you doing personally? I know you've sat on a lot of panels, you've given a lot of advice about this. What do you think, Angie, about women in technology?
Yeah, so it's obviously something that's near and dear to my heart. And as I have moved throughout my career, I have definitely taken opportunities to give back and mentor college students, mentor younger, new career, early career individuals, and it's so important for women to understand the different types of roles and careers they can have in tech as well. So I think that as we've kind of spoken, there's such a broad range of things you can do. And I had that opportunity early on at Ernst & Young to try out different aspects of it. And so when I mentor some college students, and as I meet with them, I make sure that they're clear on, the different aspects of what you can do with a tech career, an engineering career, like getting that base knowledge and that base exposure to problem solving, because that's what we do. We solve problems. We solve business problems with technology, right? And so having that as your building block, and then when you move into your career, taking those, not being afraid to take those steps and try something new. And I think for a lot of women, kind of like I was I was a little hesitant, afraid that I might make a mistake or afraid to admit a weakness. And, you know, putting yourself out there and feeling like you have the backing, to try something new. It's important. And I think sometimes women also wait to be asked instead of raising their hand. And so that's, another thing I encourage women to do is, you know, just seek out that new opportunity to show that you can do something different. And I don't know, I just kind of lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
It's totally good. It's totally good. So Angie, all really good things. Let me ask you this, because I think it's a little bit of an oxymoron. It's feels a little uncomfortable, but how important is it for women? I just think that it's harder for women maybe to do this, but to even kind of market themselves. You almost have to do this. I remember years ago, there was a young woman that talked to me and said, I'm doing this, and she was in technology, but nobody's seeing me. I feel like I'm being overlooked for promotions and things like that. So how would you talk to somebody about, without coming across as braggadocious? Nobody likes that. But how do you subtly let people know, no, here's what I've done, and you almost have to market yourself a little bit.
Yeah. And that is definitely, there's a little bit of an art and a skill there. And there are small steps to take along the way, as you get to kind of key discoveries or a key delivery, that's something that you've worked on. You know, just kind of sending a note to your boss or sending a note to some other people, your business partner or something. Hey, did you know we surpassed, you know, this number of transactions today, or this volume, or and it's those little things that can build along the way. And sometimes people wait for someone else to notice. And
that's right.
You do have to kind of it's not bragging. It's like just kind of, because also the other way to think about it is, if you're sharing this information with your boss, right? Your boss's success is dependent on your success. So, you know, you're helping them as well tell the story about all of the things that the team is doing and that you're doing.
That's gold. What you just said, that is gold, because really, if you think about it that way, you're helping your boss tell the story. Don't think of it as much of promoting yourself, but helping your boss do that. But in so doing, you're also showcasing what part you played, I think. So that is golden, what you just said. So Angie, I know we've talked about mentoring. You're very intentional about mentoring women that are early in their careers, college students. Who have been some of your mentors? What did they teach you? Why were they a good mentor? What made them a good mentor?
So one that stands out for me is Kim Martin, who I worked with at MasterCard, and she really helped me kind of grow as a leader. And one of the things that she did is she helped me understand what I was doing well. A lot of times leaders will focus on, this is what you need to do better. This is, this is where you need to improve. But she gave me feedback and helped me understand what I was doing well. And that just made me then want to deliver more, it was kind of, I found that, that positive reinforcement is extremely powerful. And so that's something that I have taken, and I try to catch myself with my team if I'm finding that I'm, focusing on what's not done, to make sure that I'm intentional about giving them that feedback of, this is going really well. I was really, happy with this approach that you took, and I never would have thought of that. I'm so glad you came up with that, So I think and when people go into mentoring relationships themselves and they seek a mentor, sometimes they're trying to fix something.
Yes.
And I encourage people that like, okay, yeah, there's, you can always work on things, but what are you really good at, and leveraging that, because that is your strength. And, finding those things that you do well, and leaning on that and leaning into that, I think can help you go even further.
I could not agree more. Angie, I may not have ever told you this, but Greg and I started our careers at McDonnell Douglas. And Greg worked with Kim way back in the day as a software developer at McDonald's. So we've known Kim for a very long time. It does not surprise me that you mentioned her name. We've got, and I've talked to you about our technology leadership experience that we launched in the beginning of 2019. MasterCard's put several people through that program, and I guess it was the last year that Kim won the Mentoring Excellence Award. So it does not surprise me that you mentioned her name. She's actually, and this is public knowledge, but she's actually an Orby Award finalist for this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
great.
Yeah. So sending positive thoughts her way that she'll be one of the winners, but does not surprise me. Well, thank you for that. And I would just say nobody gets there alone. Nobody gets there alone. Even Warren Buffett talked about the mentors in his own life and how important it is to have those. So if you are a listener and you don't have a mentor, be intentional about seeking one out. Don't be afraid to ask somebody. Truly, even if they don't have the time to mentor you right now, it will make them feel good that you even asked. But they may say yes. They may say yes too. So very, very important. Let me ask you this. How do you, Angie, personally grow? So growth mindset, I think, is so important. Maxwell says when we stop growing, we actually die. It's really, we go backwards. So what are those things that you do? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you read books? Are you involved in some organizations outside of your current organization that help you in that way?
So I learn a number of different ways. Right now I have a stack of about 10 books that I'm trying to get through that are different leadership books. And I had the opportunity recently to go to a leadership training, and so I've got some great information from that I really want to go through and find a way to work into what I'm doing every day on the job and in my personal life as well, because it all bleeds over. If you're not managing things well at work, it can bleed over into your personal life. Mm-hmm. And I listen to podcasts as well. I have some drive time to and from work, and so I find that's a really good opportunity to listen and learn while I'm on the road.
Now, so I'm just going to go on and put the words in your mouth. Something Extra is one of your favorite podcasts,
Absolutely.
Correct? It's funny that you just talked about leading or having things going well at home because it bleeds over, vice versa, right? If things are not. And it's funny, one of my podcast guests just recently, she said some of my greatest leadership lessons have come from being a mom. She said, you talk about conflict resolution. You talk about motivating somebody when they don't want to do something.
Yeah.
So
oh my gosh. Yes.
Through all of these different case studies and leadership lessons that she's learned from being a mom. And I could not agree more. You are a mom and you have a big job. Angie, how do you balance everything we are not always perfectly balanced. Let's just go ahead and put that out there. We're not perfect human beings. Sometimes we get really out of balance. When you are out of balance, how do you know it? And do you have any kind of hacks or go-tos that you go to get yourself back in alignment?
So when I feel like I am getting stretched and pulled in so many directions, I try to ground myself. And something that works really well for me, which is pretty simple, is just making sure that I get outside. I get some sunshine on days when it's sunny. And I try to go for walks. And there's a couple of reasons why that's beneficial to me. It's just like my time alone, my time to think and just be as I'm walking, enjoying nature, all of that. And that is probably the single most thing that helps me. Now, sometimes it's really hard to fit that in. And I can feel it when I'm not able to get that time. And even sometimes just going and just sitting and just kind of, mentally, like some deep breaths and that little kind of micro recharge where I just have a few minutes to ground myself. When I find myself being short with my family or feeling really overly stressed, I mean, those are the things that I try to do.
I could not agree more. I love that. We live close to a park, and when it's nice outside and I can take Allie, our youngest, loves to walk with me, and we take one of our dogs, and it just helps your perspective too. When you're out there, you're breathing the fresh air, you're seeing the beauty of nature. I could not agree more. I'm the same way with you. I've got some of those things, and that's definitely one of my go-tos. But let me ask you this, Angie. This is called something extra. What is the something extra that you believe every leader needs?
As a leader, it can be really easy to focus on the work, but that work is done by people. And in order to get the most from your team as a leader, you need to understand them and give them the ability and that psychological safety to be themselves and to let you know when they need help. And the kindness comes in, like, it's impossible to know everything that someone has going on in their life. And so giving people that grace and that letting them know that, it's okay.
So important. I could not agree with you more. There's a book I'm going to send to you, Angie. I'm going to send you a couple to add to your stack of 10 leadership books, that's your pile. But I just had Tom Ziglar on the podcast recently. This is Zig Ziglar's son. Okay. And he wrote a book. He's written a couple now, but one of his latest book is called 10 Leadership Virtues for a Disruptive World in Disruptive Times. What do you think the first leadership virtue is? You just said it. Kindness.
Kindness? Oh, okay.
It's the very first leadership virtue, because you think about disruption, people are feeling angst sometimes in those disruptive times, and leading with kindness. And the thing is, it doesn't cost us anything. It really costs nothing, but just some intentionality, I think.
Yeah.
So, well, Angie, I have absolutely loved this conversation with you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful, truly, because I just know what a big job you have, and for you to take the time to be on the show today, I'm just very grateful to you.
Thank you, Lisa. It was great. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc. 2019. For show notes or to reach Lisa, visit tpi.co/podcast. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you listen.